Let's take a quick look at the most popular type of archetypal patterns. This is the hero quest archetype. It's the one you're going to see the most often, and it should be the most recognizable one for you. So the hero quest is a journey towards a goal. This journey could be a conscious decision that our main character, our protagonist, has made. They've made a decision to sort of carry on this journey to complete a goal, or sometimes they don't make the decision. The decision is made for them. They're forced into action by external factors. Could be by other people, could be the environment, could be anything that forces them to take action. And it moves along a linear path. These stories are most often told in a linear sort of narrative structure, so we can follow them very, very easily. And it's this path that makes up our story. The hero quest archetype represents the search for something. It often includes adventures and tasks, and ultimately, in the end, it leads to a maturity or an understanding, or essentially the regaining of the golden age. And that's the purpose of the journey, is to regain the golden age, which has been lost or corrupted. So the hero quest is what happens in between the golden age at the beginning and the golden age at the end. It's the meat of the story, and that's why we watch the movie, that's why we read the book, that's why we consume the story however we're going to do it, because that's the part that matters to us. In most stories that you read or that you watch, you know how it's going to end before you even start. What you don't know is how they're going to get there. That's the exciting part, and that's what we watch. And that is the hero quest archetype in most stories that we're watching. So the hero quest archetype, the hero quest pattern, it could be physical, it could be intellectual, it could be psychological, it could be spiritual. These are the different ways a person can grow and succeed and change. It can happen in one of two different ways, this sort of hero quest archetype. It can be on the exterior level. It could be a physical search, it could be physical endurance, it could be some sort of task. And this is what we see in movies that are driven by conflict and plot. And there's not a lot of character development. They're strictly driven by action. Dan Brown writes these sorts of stories. They're driven by the plot. There's not a ton of character development. It's mostly driven by conflict. So those are the archetypes that deal with the exterior level. The other option, of course, is the inner level, and those are your character-driven stories. That's where we see characters change and develop. There's usually a self-realization, and the character matures and grows and gains understanding and wisdom. Those are stories that have less action, and they're more driven by character development. So we're going to take the hero quest archetype and we're going to break it in half. We're going to look at the quest archetype, and we're going to look at the hero archetype. And you'll see that although they're similar, they're not exactly the same. And they're often interchangeable depending on the story, the length of story, the type of story, who wrote the story, but they're often fairly interchangeable. But there are 5 stages to each one, and the stages sometimes get mixed and matched a little bit. So first we're going to look at the stages of the quest. There are 5 stages in the quest archetype, and the quest is used in plot and conflict based stories. So step 1 is the call to adventure. Sorry, I can't see my own notes. Stage 1 is the call to adventure. That's the initial curiosity. There's some sort of intuitive voice telling them to move forward. It's often an external task or an assignment that they must complete, but they're driven by something. Something is pushing them into this adventure, and the something could come from within them, something they feel that they have to do. Or it could be, like I said before, some sort of external circumstance forcing them into action, forcing them into this adventure, if you will. Stage 2 is the preparation. There's some sort of ritual or purification. If you think of like your sort of current superhero movie, these are always them training. This is usually a musical montage that lasts about 2 to 3 minutes in a film, where they're learning, they're practicing, they're preparing for their adventure and what they have to do. And you see this in almost all films that follow this pattern, and superhero films follow this pattern very, very well. So it's the musical montage near the beginning of the film where they're learning, where they're preparing what they need to do. Stage 3 are the tests and trials. These are the obstacles and the hardships that the main character faces. This is where our main character learns by experience, and they learn through failure. So the tests and trials are where they're sort of confronted with these little mini obstacles that they have to overcome, and they often fail. And through that failure, they gain experience, they gain knowledge, they gain everything they need to know to finally be victorious in the end. Often in this stage, they're assisted by a helper of some sort. Someone else comes into the story that aids our hero. If you go all the way back to Greek mythology, this person is often a magical helper of some sort. This isn't the case necessarily, but someone will come into the story at this point that acts as the helper. Stage 4 is the supreme ordeal. This is where the main character confronts, it's their big battle. It's where the conflict comes to a closing point, and the hero's either going to be victorious or they're going to fail. Obviously, in the hero quest pattern, the main character 99% of the time is victorious. If they fail, it's often considered a tragedy. But of course, that's very, very rare because we don't like tragedies. We like happy endings. We like the main character to succeed. So that's stage 4, the supreme ordeal. And of course, the last little bit, it's the little bit of wrap up. It's the 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the movie. That's the return or the reward, where the main character returns back to their old life. The golden age has been restored in most cases. This doesn't work as well in series. So if it's, part 2 of a 3-part film, obviously it doesn't always work. You have to look at the series as a whole sometimes to see that. But it's the return to the golden age, and the main character is often rewarded. Could be a physical reward. They could get money. They could get something else. Or most often it's sort of a personal reward where they gain knowledge, they gain maturity, they gain understanding. Sometimes it's just that they get to live. That's their reward. Now, to complement the stages of the quest, we're going to look at the stages of the hero or the heroine. And as you can see, they're very, very similar, but they're not exactly the same. So the stages of the hero are what we see. We'll see the main character go through these different phases as they move along through the story. And these are in character-driven stories more than just plot and conflict driven. So the first stage is called the innocent. Our main character starts off innocent. They live in the unfallen world. They're a part of the golden age. Everything is good. Life is really good. They're happy. There's nothing wrong. And then, boom, stage 2 hits. It's the orphan. And the orphan is either, they're abandoned. And they're seeking safety. So they have no protection. They have no help. Think of them as orphaned. One of the things that makes these superhero movies currently so popular, like I said, is they follow these patterns so very, very well. You'll notice there are no superheroes with living parents. Their parents always die. They're orphaned. This is a literal representation. So everything is good. They're in the golden age, and then the parents die, and that golden age, that perfect world, is taken away from them, and that's what they're left with. Stage 3 is the wanderer stage. And in this stage, it's pretty simple. This lines up with the tests and trials of the quest archetype. But in the wanderer stage, they are either searching for something, or they are fleeing from. See, I just screwed that up, and I don't want to start all over again. So I'm not going to start all over again because I've already done like 1 minute and 45 seconds of this slide, and it's just too much to start over again. So I'm just going to go back to where I stopped talking about stage 2, and I'm going to start talking about stage 3. You ready? Here we go. Stage 3 is the wanderer stage. This lines up with the tests and trials. The tests and trials of the hero quest. So in this stage, they're either searching for something or they're fleeing from something. But one way or another, they're running around. There's a lot of running around. They could be running from something. They could be running to get somewhere, to get something. But they're considered like a wanderer. They have no real, they have a purpose, but they don't have a set place that is theirs. They're not where they want to be. They're right in the middle of this hero archetype, and they have a long way to go to get back to that golden age. Stage 4 is the warrior part. This lines up with the supreme ordeal. This is where they've gathered everything they need. from the previous stage. They've gone through their tests and trials, they've gone through their searching or their fleeing, and they're ready to confront sort of the metaphorical dragon, if you will. They're ready to come up against their adversary. And again, if they're victorious, that's great. We move on to stage 5. If they're not victorious, which rarely happens, Miss Garlock, now that's just rude. Miss Garlock just interrupted me. I'm now 3 minutes into this, and Miss Garlock is making funny faces at me, and I'm not starting again. So we're just gonna ignore what I just said, and I'm gonna keep going. So Supreme Ordeal, I covered that. We did the whole Supreme Ordeal. They confront the metaphorical dragon. If they fail, again, our main character dies. It's a tragedy. And stage 5 is the martyr stage. Often they sacrifice themselves. They become a martyr for their goal. Their sacrifice allows others to reach the golden age. That's the martyr stage. And it's also referred to as the magician stage, stage 5. It's that's more back to the Greek mythology, where there's some sort of physical transformation. And again, that's going all the way back to Greek mythology. Usually the transformation at this point is that they've matured, they've gone through that loss of innocence, they've gained experience, they've gained wisdom, they've gained understanding. And that's sort of the magical transformation that takes place at this point, and that's why we call it the magician stage. I think that pretty much wraps up the Hero Quest archetype. Forgive the little mistakes in this one. I'll try and do better on the next one. Again, if you need to watch this again, please go ahead, and we'll discuss it in class soon. Try and keep this pattern in mind when you're watching films and movies, and see if you can point out. It should help to make these stories, whether you're reading them or watching them, a little bit more predictable, because this is a very, very common pattern.